So Steven Parrish, I work for Daedalus. I'm the Chief Clinical Information Officer. What we do at Daedalus is, you name it, we do it. We're jack of all trades, no. Predominantly in Australia, we've been around patient admission systems and medication management, but now we're part of a bigger organisation being Daedalus. We are bringing in EMRs, we're bringing in research platforms, we're bringing a whole lot of technology that Australia hasn't seen before from us as an organisation. It's really exciting, challenging and exciting in its own right, but we do a lot.
Yeah, love it. And look, Daedalus being no strangers to talking HealthTech, and done a little bit on the podcast already. There's a longer episode that people can check out that you and I recorded in a while ago, and it's great to catch up now to hear what you've been up to since then. So what's been keeping you busy at Daedalus?
Yeah, keeping me busy. Well, as with always, it's tenders and responses to customers, but right now what we're doing is, and what we spoke about today, was the research platform called Trials for Care. So Trials for Care is a clinical trials platform that enables the recruitment of patients into global clinical trials. So the reason we've done that, in Australia, about 90,000 people are part of clinical trials in Australia a year, but that only equates to about 0.5% of the population of Australia are involved in clinical trials. Now, we need clinical trials, because clinical trials is how we get proof that various therapies and medications work in an efficable way. So our platform allows the clinicians to then recruit patients into global clinical trials and provide that handshake between the life sciences companies and the clinicians that organise their patients with the trials. So it just makes that in a secure way, allows them to use various protocols to be written to then can search data that's held locally on customers' databases to then see whether someone would be appropriate for a clinical trial.
Yeah, I mean, the whole clinical trial space and finding that, I guess, making sense of that challenge of connecting the right patients to trials, making new potential treatments available earlier through the process, but also opening up this opportunity for innovation too. It's one that the ecosystem is in dire need for, but there's a lot of different ways to kind of do it, and we're not short of attempts to try and solve that in a digital format. But I guess from a Daedalus perspective, you've got that existing capability and the broader infrastructure. It's interesting to hear that it's such a priority for you now to be able to do that. Like what drives that kind of need to do this now, and what's a little bit unique from the Daedalus perspective?
Yeah, I think from a Daedalus perspective, it's very much saying that we have a footprint, a global footprint, that we need to be able to use what we've got for good. We need to be able to see where some of the gaps are in the market and see how we can fill them. And clinical trials is one of those gaps that we saw. And in our current clinical trials database, we have 30 million patient records sitting there. And that's just scratching the surface of what's possible. So we felt that it was a good space to be. It is not something someone else is doing in the way that we're doing it. So people are bringing together certain aspects of clinical trials. So whether it's a certain cohort, diabetes, or we focus on diabetes and say, well, we're going to build a diabetes database and get all the diabetes patients onto it. We're saying we're not specific to our disease. We're saying it's about the data that's held at a hospital, at a GP level, about a patient that can be useful. And it can be as simple as a diagnosis, a name, a date of birth, age, and a location. It can be as simple as that. And we can then use that potentially to match against clinical trials that are happening around the world. But I guess what's unique to us is we believe we've put together a platform that keeps the data secure, private, anonymized. So there is no need for that data to leave the customer's system or their environment. So all we do is we send down a request from a trial coordinator with the criteria. It then comes into their system, into the system that the customer has, and they make a choice whether they want to run that against their data. And they run that, and then they make another choice whether they want to send the response to that up. And all that gets sent is the number of patients and the location. And then that allows for the clinical trials people to review that, say, oh, we have enough of a cohort for our clinical trial, and then send more detail down, and then the local organisation can do all their consent and ethics approvals, etc., to then have those, I guess, the patient, the clinician, and the life sciences companies to have that detailed conversation.
Yeah, good. As you were talking earlier, I'm like, oh, yeah, like it's just because, there's a lot of patient records in all these different healthcare systems doesn't mean you can mine 30 million patients' files, so it's far from that. And that process and that capability is one that you'd obviously be leaning into that global capability and the resources you got from the Daedalus. So that's really interesting. I like that that structure and the model. We're here at HIC with the AIDH, and I believe you're up on a stage. Are we talking particularly about this topic?
So yeah, I spoke about it this morning actually. I did. Yes, already done.
Fresh on the mind. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And so, what are you looking forward to most out of the next couple of days?
Yeah, I think HIC's always a good place for networking. For me, it's about meeting the people, meeting colleagues, and both new and old, trying to understand what's happening in the sector, what the priorities are, where organisations are going. At the moment, we've got challenges, big time around affordability of not just healthcare, health insurance, but people's access to healthcare. We've got diversity issues, equity issues. There's so much going on. And then we've got a sector, especially the private sector, health sector is really struggling financially. Public sector just keeps going on, but still has its own challenges. So I think it's about understanding what those challenges are and how a company like Daedalus might help. Great to sell stuff too, but to me it's more about the relationships, about understanding what's going on, what's important to people, and how we can possibly help them at some point in the future.